So first things first, I'm going to introduce myself because some people may not know me exactly. I'm going to keep this right here because I want to make sure that I remember and I stick on plan because I talk a lot. Okay. So first things first, welcome. If you guys don't know, my name is Joseph Octaviani. I am the owner here of Life the Plant Way. I'm here to teach you guys about herbal salves because I got introduced to herbal salves through a couple personal experiences of mine where either a friend needed something for their skin and I had to whip something up right away, and I actually sprained my ankle, so I needed to create something for that ankle. Okay, so I've been doing herbalism for about 6 years now. The business has been 4 years, so I took a couple years to myself to really learn, hone in on everything that I know, apply it, share it with friends, share it with family. And so hopefully you guys can take this information, apply it to yourself, see some results, apply it to the people around you, and then just take it off from there. Okay. If you guys don't know, herbalism has remedies for, we constantly hear about the internal, the teas and the tinctures and everything internally. But herbalism is really cool because it's very practical on the external as well. So it can be applied internally, it can be applied externally. There's different things you can do for your hair, for your skin, shit for your house. If you want to clean, there's different things you can whip up. So there's many different ways that you can utilize herbs. It's not just internally. And so I became really passionate about that, like I said, due to my personal circumstances with my ankle and with a friend and their skin. And that is why I am here. Today we're going to be talking about the oils, what different oils to use, a couple of different herbal classes, and I'm going to break that down, what exactly that means. We're also going to, I'm going to demonstrate it for you guys live here so you guys can copy at home. For those of you here, you're going to have a DIY pack, and so that you're going to select your herbs after we're all done. So that you can go home with some. But for those of you at home, because you didn't come in, you got to get your own shit. Okay, so so I'm also going to explain the shelf life, a couple of do's and don'ts, how to apply, which is kind of self-explanatory. It's kind of very simple to understand. Just put it onto your skin, and that's really about it. There's no really. The thing about herbal medicine is that there aren't really like set formulas that you have to abide by. It is a very creative art. It's a very free art. You can literally make up a formula on the fly. You can make up a brand new formula today and a brand new formula tomorrow, and they'll work just as good as the other. So there are no really like boxes when it comes to herbalism. You can be as creative as you want. Use as many different herbs as you want. You just have to understand the herbal classes. You have to understand what mediums you're using, and I'm going to go into that as well when I go into the oils. And yeah, and then the actual like production of it. So make sure you don't, destroy things with the heat and things like that. Okay. So the first thing I really wanted to talk about was the importance of the internal health when it comes to the skin. Okay, because all of today we're going to be talking about external, but I wanted to dedicate a small portion of my time to talk about the internal. Okay, if you are someone who is experiencing dried up skin, constant dried skin, constant flare-ups, constant irritation and redness and things like that, that is an internal problem. It is not as simple as you walk outside, you get sunburnt, you put something on externally, and then boom, you're good. These things that are chronic, that have been happening for years or that are very painful, that is an internal condition. Okay, so yes, salves are going to work. Salves are remedies, but they are not, full-on solutions for those internal problems. Okay, so I want to invite you guys to not just learn about the external piece, but also dive deeper into herbalism and dive deeper into the herbs and how they can help on the internal. I talk a lot about organs and their responsibility for external health. So, you know, if you guys are already following my page, go ahead and binge watch it, binge watch our TikTok, the Instagrams. If you guys want to learn even deeper, you can go over to our academy online, Life and Nature Academy, and we discuss the organs and things like that. Okay, I had to start off with that because I don't want you guys to make this, apply it to yourself, and then say, hey, Joseph, I've been applying this for a month, and although it helps, the problem keeps coming back. And that's because the root isn't fixed. Okay, this is just a temporary solution. Okay, because we need those as well. We're not just going to suffer while we fix things internally. That's usually a longer battle. So the beauty about herbalism is we can bring remedy right now in the instant, and we can also provide remedy for the long term and really go after the root. Okay, so again, this class is more about the quick fix almost. The quick remedy that you might need in case of a flare-up, in case of a bug bite, in case of a cut or a bruise or something like that. That's where this part of herbal medicine comes in. Okay, so now that you guys heard that part, let's talk about what are salves. Okay, an herbal salve is simply just a balm. Okay, no different really than a lip balm or whatever balm you use for your baby's bottom or anything like that. What it is, it's just a more concentrated form of an herbal extract that you apply topically. Okay, you don't apply salves internally. There are different ways or different methods you can use to apply herbs internally. The reason why you don't really want to apply this internally is because one, that's a lot of oil. So you don't want to consume a lot of oil at once. And two, you're going to be using something like beeswax or some type of wax that hardens it up. And you don't want to be ingesting, large amounts of that. So that is really the difference between a salve. That's really what a salve is. It's just a hardened version of some type of herbal medicine. We're so used to teas, and that is a water-based, tinctures, that is an alcohol-based or glycerin-based. This is more on the oil-based. Okay, so it's going to be less potent. Okay, in my opinion, the most potent form of herbal medicine is going to be the alcohol extract, and I can talk about that in another workshop when we talk about tincture making, if you want to come to one of those. But this one is oil-based. And the reason why it's not as potent as alcohol-based, like a tincture or a tea, is because the oils are already so fatty, and so they have little room to bring on these herbal constituents, these herbal properties. So something like water. Water, as soon as you have boiling water and you put a light herb in there, you can see the color start to fill in the water almost immediately. It's because the medium is very empty. Okay, when it comes to something like oils, the reason why the water is a lot more runny than oil is because the oil is a lot thicker, a lot heavier. There's not really much room. Okay, so again, pros and cons. The reason why it doesn't make it necessarily a con that it's not as potent, because it is going to be applied topically. So you don't need the max amount of potency to be applied topically, because you can apply it multiple times a day. Okay, as compared to something like a internal remedy, I want potency because I want that fix within. I want I want a quicker fix. I want a more long-term fix, a more long-term solution. So that's going to be more potent medicine that you need. Okay, so salves again are oil-based. They're thicker. They're less potent. They're not internal remedies. They're external, and that's really what makes up a salve. Okay. Now, let's see. Where do I start? Today, we're going to be using a couple different materials. Today, we're going to be using sesame oil. We're going to be using sesame oil, and I also have cacao butter. And I'm gonna add those in at separate times, and I'm gonna show you why. So let's talk about the oils that you want to use, because there are so many different oils out there, and all of them have pros and cons. They all have, their strengths and their weaknesses. So to stick with this one, because this is the one that we got, sesame oil is going to be a very calming oil. It's a very calming oil for the nervous system. Okay, so calming oil for the nerves. If people have nerve damage, if people have nerve pain, the sesame oil is going to be that guy. It's also very warming as well, so it'll bring warmth to that area. I feel like that helps with the pain as well. The one thing about sesame oil, though, I got it for those reasons, but some people don't get it because of the smell. It is a very strong smell. It's a little off-putting to some people, which I understand. Me, I don't necessarily care too much about the smell because I'm more so about the medicinal benefits. But if you're someone who is very particular about their smell, maybe sesame oil isn't going to be your guy. There is olive oil, which is a very common oil. That is a very lightweight oil. So it makes a really good medium, like a cooking medium. It has a high smoke point. This as well, sesame oil as well. They both have a high smoke point, which means that if they're exposed to higher temperatures, they're not going to become rancid. They're not going to destroy the property of the oils. So olive oil, sesame oil, these two are very high in smoke point, which means you can apply more heat and not be so worried about losing the medicinal benefits or just losing the quality of the oil. I also like avocado oil because it is, again, higher in the smoke point. The only thing about the avocado oil as compared to a sesame or olive, the sesame and olive are very lightweight. They're almost kind of watery, for lack of better terms. And that's what makes them lightweight. They're very easy to apply. They're also, again, very watery. So you got to keep that in mind. They're very runny. The avocado oil is more on, because it has more fats, it's more on the thicker side. So it may not penetrate as deep as the sesame oil or the olive oil. So the more runny it is, the deeper it penetrates, but also you have the runniness, which some people just don't like. The thicker the oil, the less runny it is, but also the longer it takes for it to penetrate. So really keep that in mind. The thicker it is, also the more potential for clogging of the pores. So keep that in mind. If you guys are going to use an herbal salve for your face, if you guys are going to use some medicinal oil for your face, let it be more of a runnier oil. Let it be a lighter weight oil, something like a sesame, olive oil. What's that other one in my mind? Anyone think of anything else? Huh? Coconut is a little bit, I'm not the biggest fan of coconut because depending on what kind of coconut oil you get, it does not withstand like normal temperatures. So it'll like harden up really fast. So it makes it harder to apply. It also makes it more pore clogging, if that's a phrase. But that one's a little bit more on the thicker side. So beware of the coconut oil with that. I do like the smell of coconut oil. I like the feeling of coconut oil. However, it is a little on the thicker side, and you have that case of, well, it's going to harden up on you. So be aware of that. Almond oil is a really good one. Almond oil is a really good one. What else? I had another one in my mind, but I can't think of it right now. Castor oil, that's going to be on the thicker side. Castor oil is actually very powerful, especially for the one that we're going to make today. Sadly, I don't have it. But castor oil is on the thicker side. It takes longer to penetrate, but when it does, it's a very powerful lymphatic mover. So these aren't really the lymph movers, so they're not really going to move waste effectively. But it is more hydrating though. because they are runnier. So it is going to get, going to go deeper into the skin. So it's a lot more hydrating. However, the lymphatic one, the castor oil, I mean, is better for removing waste internally. So if you're applying to things like swellings, things like cysts, tumors, ingrown things, broken bones and broken tendons and all that type of stuff, you want to be able to remove the waste internally by applying it externally. That'll be your castor oil. But I don't like cooking with castor oil. It doesn't really have a high smoke point. So what I've seen, so it's not something that I would use as a medium for the herbs. Now, I keep saying medium for the herbs because you have to transfer the herbs into some type of medium. It's not going to be water. We're not making a tea. It's not going to be alcohol. So it has to be somewhat of a lightweight oil that can bring on these herbal constituents a lot easier. Like I said earlier, the thicker it is, the less space it's going to have for the herbal compounds. So the more herbs you're going to have to use, the thicker the oil. Okay. Did you bring water? Oh yeah. Thank you. All right. This has been on, so I might hear a little sizzle. Okay. I'm gonna put this in here just so it can, because it is an electric one, it is gonna take a while for it to start boiling. Now, whenever we're using this type of oil, we want to make sure that we're separating oil and water. Okay, the reason why I put it in there and not in here is because this is where the oil is going to be, and I cannot have any water in this medium. Water and oil do not mix. So whenever we're making a herbal salve, please, no water in the oil because it will become rancid. Okay, it will mold up a lot quicker. This is going to have a very long shelf life. So make sure that your water and your oil stay separate. Okay. Now, whenever we're trying to get the herbs extracted in the oil, there are multiple ways that we can do that. Okay, so go ahead and choose your oil. You're going to put the oil inside a cup like this. I use the measuring cup. And we're going to be doing what's called a double boiler method. Okay, double boiler method. And what that means is we're going to be, quote unquote, boiling the oil, but we're not applying direct heat to the oil. So we're not just putting a pot, putting the oil in and letting the fire hit the pot, and then it's going to start simmering and boiling the oil. The reason why we don't want to do that is because the more heat that you expose to the oil, the quicker it is going to become rancid, the quicker it's going to become damaged, the more oxidation is going to happen to the oil. Okay, the more oxidation, the less quality you have in the oil. So the double boiler method protects the oil from direct heat, but it still gets it hot enough to where it can gently kind of simmer so that the herbs get extracted into it. Okay, there are multiple ways to do this. So from slowest to fastest, the slowest method is going to be simply an oil, kind of like an infusion of an oil. So what you do is you literally just take oil, put your herbs in there, shake it up, and put it in your cabinet. That is the easiest, but also the longest taking, the longest taking one, because this needs to infuse anywhere from about 4 to 6 weeks. I've heard some herbalists say 8 weeks. Obviously, the more you have it in there, there's not necessarily like 4 weeks, you have to get it out. The longer you leave it in there, the longer the oil is naturally going to extract, but it does take the longest. So if you are someone who needs it a little bit quicker, this is obviously not the way to go. If you're someone who's just experimenting and you're trying to get a formula right, or you just kind of want to have something on reserve, this is a great way to go. You can just forget about it. So this is going to take anywhere from about 4 to 6 weeks, maybe even 8 weeks, depending on how thick the herbs are. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. Another way that you can do it is, have you guys heard of a sun tea? Right, so you can actually do the same thing with this. So sun oil, I guess you can say. And that's literally the same thing. You put the oil, you put the herbs inside the oil, but you keep this in the sun every single day. It won't go rancid because the heat of the sun is the perfect amount of heat. It's not too much. As compared to this, it's a really high heat that brings it to a boil. The sun is not going to bring it to a boil if I leave it outside. You know, it gets rancid once it starts boiling. Yeah, once it gets to that temperature where I can't remember the exact temperature of the boil, but once it gets to a boil, that's when you start losing your the potentness, I guess, for lack of better words, the strength of the oil. Okay, so the more it's exposed to that boiling heat. So that one is going to take anywhere from about 2 to 4 weeks. So that one's kind of like a medium solution. So about 2 to 4 weeks for the sun oil, I guess I'll call it. I'll coin that phrase, I guess. And then this is going to be the second fastest. And this is the double boiler method. Yes.
That method where you're letting it just sit in that one cabinet, you want to shake that every day.
You can if you'd like. You can if you like. You don't necessarily have to, because everything is going to get engulfed in it. But yeah, you can if you'd like, for sure. That's actually probably a good practice to do it. Yeah, I know for tinctures, the reason why you shake tinctures is to kind of like get that process activated of like the alcohol fermenting the herbs, but that's not really going to ferment. Yeah, so you don't necessarily have to, but in times where maybe the herbs are kind of rising to the top and there's herbs that aren't exposed to oil, you kind of want everything exposed. So yeah, you can make it a good habit of shaking it every single day, mixing it up every single day. Good question. Right now this is boiling, so I'm going to put this in while I'm talking. The measurements that we're going to be using, this is a really easy measurements for everybody. It's 1 cup of oil. And we're going to be using, for beeswax to harden it up, a 1/4 cup or a quarter cup. So 1/4 of a cup per 1 cup of oil. So 1/4 cup of beeswax for 1 cup of oil. And this is going to leave it to where it's not extremely hard. It's not extremely runny. I feel like it's the perfect consistency I found. But I'm going to go ahead and put this oil in here because it is going to take a while for it to heat up the oil because we're not applying it to direct heat. So this process, it's the second fastest. This is going to take, honestly, you can leave this on almost as long as you want. I know herbalists who leave it on for about 3 or 4 days. Because we're not going to be in this live for 3 or 4 days, I'm going to leave it on for about an hour. And it'll still have a good amount of potency, but to extend the potency, you can leave it on overnight. Obviously you would want a bigger pot because as time goes on, the water is going to be evaporating, right? So you want to come back and put water into it, make sure it maintains a good level of water. But if you have a big pot and you're making a bigger amount of it, you can leave it on for a day, 2, 3, 4 days. But me, in my personal practice, what I do at home, I like just 2 hours. But again, for the sake of this, I'm going to leave it on for just about an hour. Go ahead and just waste the rest of that. So that was a cup of oil for me. Okay. Now, while this is boiling, is there any questions going on over here on the Zoom call or on the TikTok?
One said, how long for the sun oil?
The sun, about 4 to 6 weeks. Well, really, you can do 2 to 4 weeks. You can do 2 to 4 weeks, and you can a good practice would be 4 weeks, but you can see how much of the herbs are being extracted into the oil just off of the color change. Okay, so for the sun oil, you can see how much it's extracting just off of the color change, but 4 weeks is like a perfect time. What you can do if you don't want to leave it outside, you can bring it in overnight, but during the day, leave it out in a sunny spot and just literally leave it there. Okay, and then at night, just bring it in if you're worried about it being too cold where you are or anything like that. Okay. So is there any other ones?
Jojoba oil.
Jojoba oil is a really good one as well. I like jojoba oil, although I don't like jojoba oil to be a medium. And so here's gonna be the biggest difference between like the medium that you use and the other oils that you can mix in there when you are done extracting the herbs.
Somebody said, what about black seed oil?
I wouldn't use black seed oil, no. Now, there are different herbs that one are too thick to use, like the castor oil. There are oils that are too gentle to use, that have a low, really low smoke point. And that's usually gonna be your butters, like your shea butters, cacao butter, jojoba, I feel like is a very gentle one. These are gonna not be your mediums, but you can add them in after the fact. And so today I'm gonna be using the sesame oil. I'm gonna be extracting the herbs in the sesame oil. But when I'm all done, and obviously I'm gonna do it when I'm done, I'm gonna be throwing in some cacao butter. Okay, because I don't want to expose it to a lot of heat for a longer period of time because it is very gentle. Okay, so the oils that are really gentle are usually going to be the butters, the shea butter, the cacao butter, and then the lightweight ones like jojoba and even almond. I wouldn't necessarily use almond as a medium to extract. I would use it more so after the fact so that you can have the medicinal properties of the oil, but you're not exposing it to heat. Okay, so the one that you're gonna put in the cup or whatever bowl or whatever that you're using is going to be the one with the higher smoke point. Okay, so like you said, the sesame and the olive oil, and even the avocado oil as well. Now, when your water is boiling, you can actually, yeah, that oil is nice and hot. When you feel the oil is nice and hot, you can either do this before or after, to be very honest with you. I kind of forgot to do it before. That's why I'm doing it right now. But you can throw in the oil and the herbs at the same time and then put it into the double boiler. I'm kind of doing it one at a time just to kind of show you guys. And because I forgot, I don't know why. But I'm gonna start putting in some herbs right now. I'm gonna talk about what herbal classes I'm using, and we're gonna talk about measurements. Now, to start off, I guess, with measurements, when it comes to herbal salves, the measurements and maybe some mainstream herbalists might not like what I'm about to say. But when it comes to the herbal salves and the herbal oils, the measurements do not matter. The measurements do not matter. You cannot overdose on this. Okay, this is not something that you're applying internally, for one. Remember that. Okay. Two, like we said earlier, this is not water. Okay, so you are going to need more herbs to extract the properties into the oil. Unlike a tea, you can't put a whole cup of herb into a tea and then drink that. It's way too much. But you can put a whole cup of, that's going to be obviously too much, but just for an exaggeration, you can put a whole cup of herb into this. Okay, now, because it's oils, you're going to need more herbs. Keep in mind, the more herbs that you use, the less space inside of the oil for the herbal extracts. Okay, so the more herbs that you use, the less space in the oil, so the less it's going to be able to. So let's say, for example, I put in 1 cup of oil and I put in half a cup of horsetail, half a cup of comfrey, half a cup of rosemary, half a cup of cloves. I just put in 3 cups or something like that. Don't judge my math. For example, 3 cups of herbs for 1 cup of oil. There's no way that this oil is going to get all of the medicinal properties in all of those. So how you want to break your ratio up is what is the most important oil, what is the most important herb for you? What is the main intention behind this oil? If the main intention behind this oil is to be, let's say, an analgesic, which is like a pain reliever, then my main herb that I'm putting in, the most amount that I'm putting in, is going to be a pain relieving herb. Okay? So when you are breaking down for, like, let's say 1 cup of oil, I like to put about 1 cup of oil, 1 cup of herbs. I like to equal it out when it comes to the oil. In that 1 cup of herbs that I'm putting in, the most amount of herbs that I'm going to have in there, or the majority, is going to be the pain relieving, if that's my intention. Okay, so in this case, because we're making an oil that is for repairing bones, repairing damaged tissue, my main herbs are going to be the horsetail and the comfrey. Okay, so out of that 1 cup, I would say 3/4 of that cup is going to be horsetail and comfrey, because that is the main focus. The other herbs that I put in, if I choose to put in other herbs, are going to be supporting herbs to that main intention. Okay, so choose an intention when it comes to your herbal medicine, when it comes to your oils or even teas or whatever. Choose an intention, get an herb that supports that main intention, and then you can choose supporting herbs to support that intention. Okay? So the way I break it down is your main herb, your supporting herb. Okay? Now, like I said, the measurements that I like to use for oils is 1 cup oil, 1 cup herbs. Okay? So today, we're going to be using a couple different classes of herbs. Well, really just 2, because I don't have the other ones. But I will break down 3 classes of herbs that you guys can use, that you guys can kind of go off of and look into. We're going to be going over astringent herbs, astringents. We're going to be going over stem cell proliferation, which is really just kind of like rejuvenating herb. You can just write that if you don't want to write down stem cell proliferation. You can write down astringent herbs, rejuvenating herbs, and then analgesic herbs, ANAL, gesic, GESIC. Those are the 3 different herbal classes. Okay, each herbal class is going to have its main function. Okay, within an herbal class, you'll have multiple herbs, many different herbs. Okay, they just get placed into these folders. All right. So for the astringent herbs, astringent meaning it pulls. That's how I remember astringent. It pulls, it tightens. It's similar to a lemon that has a lot of astringency. It will pull your face back. So astringent herbs are classes of herbs that pull on your tissues, tighten your tissues. Okay. And that's very powerful externally or internally. Externally, if you have things like stretch marks. Externally, if you have things like sagging skin. Externally, if you want to tighten up a cut and close up a cut, that's where astringent herbs come in. You can kind of just think, where and what aspects of my body or what aspects of life do I really need a kind of like a pulling action on my skin? Okay, like I said, cuts, sagging skin, stretch marks. If you get a bug bite and you want to draw out poison, you want to draw out fangs that are left over, you want to draw out something that was placed in there, some type of poison or something, that's where astringent herbs come in. Okay, astringent is all about the pulling. It's all about the tightening. Okay, those herbs, I wrote down a couple of examples here. And these are really popular ones for skin health. Calendula or calendula, however you guys, however you guys want to say it. Yarrow, which is one of my personal favorites. Witch hazel, which is probably going to be the strongest next to the yarrow, in my opinion. Eye bright, and that's spelled I, like your eye, and bright. And rose. Rose hip to be exact, but you can just put rose or rose hip. Okay, these are going to be your astringent ones. These are very powerful again for the pulling effect, for wrinkles as well. If you want to make some type of oil for your skin, for your face, and you want to tighten up wrinkles on your face, using any of those, infusing any of those in an oil and applying that oil daily is going to be great for that. Your next herbs are the stem cell proliferation herbs or the rejuvenating herbs. Okay.
Could you drive?
Stem cell proliferation, meaning that it's going to have this action where it helps your body produce stem cells. So stem cells are used in the body as
Why is this happening?
Builds quite literally anything. Broken bones, torn muscles, punctured organs, quite literally anything that is dying, decaying, fragile. You want to use these rejuvenating or these stem cell proliferating herbs in order to kind of rebuild and rejuvenate. Okay. So that's going to look like horsetail. Okay. Horsetail. Horsetail has, amongst herbs that I know, has the highest amounts of silica. And silica is needed for building the bones. Okay, so when your body has that silicon come into the body, it helps it kind of use it as building blocks. So horsetail, due to that high silica content, is going to be great for any type of connective tissue. Okay, connective tissue that includes tendons, muscles, bones, hair, nails, just even the skin itself. It's used to repair and rebuild any of those. Anything really horsetail comes into contact with. Okay. It's very popular in the use of any type of bone salves, so bone repair salves, and for hair loss. Okay. You also have comfrey roots or comfrey leaf, either or. The root is going to be more potent. We're going to be using the comfrey leaf here because it's what I have. But either or, comfrey roots and comfrey leaf. Okay. Now, comfrey is called, comfrey is nicknamed nick bone or knit. I'm sorry, knit bone. Knit bone. That's like a traditional folk nickname, I guess, that was given to it, probably by the country folk. And that's because of its ability to almost knit bones back together. So it's really powerful in building up the bones. Okay, so again, for broken bones, sprains, ankles, knees, arthritis pain, things like that. That's going to be very powerful for that. Okay, that is comfrey leaf or root. Another one is going to be chaparral, okay, or creosote bush. However, you know, depending on what herbalist you talk to, you'll have different names for it. That's chaparral or creosote bush, and that's going to have the same effect. It's going to have this kind of like stem cell proliferation, so it's going to help rebuild, rejuvenate. Okay, personal example, and this is when we were at the land. I was using bare hands to break and move all these bushes, these chaparral bushes, and I got cut. And the cut actually was a pretty wide gash. And what I did was, knowing the stem cell proliferation, and it also has some astringency to it, the chaparral, knowing those properties, what I did was took some leaves, chewed it up, put that that poultice or the chewed up leaves and stuffed it inside of the cut, and I just left it in there. And about 20 minutes later, it kind of naturally fell off from me walking around, and all the bleeding stopped, and it was already closing back up. Okay, it works that fast. Okay, so I like the chaparral for the stem cell proliferation. So rebuilding not only the astringency, so closing up wounds, but also for the rebuilding of the tissue, so scars as well. If anybody has any nasty scar tissue, those are going to be the herbs that you want to use: the horsetail, the comfrey, the chaparral. Okay. So the third and the last herbal class we're going to be talking about is the analgesic or pain relieving herbal class. Okay, analgesic, pain relieving. I put a dash because I don't really like the word analgesic. It kind of goes it goes over everybody's heads. Nobody know what the fuck that is. So I like to just say pain relieving herbs. Okay. And this is actually going to be a wide range of herbs. The most common one that I can think of that I have access to is going to be arnica. Arnica is because of, you'll notice the analgesic ones, they'll have a lot of volatile oils. So they'll usually have like a really strong smell to them. It's usually the really aromatic herbs. So that's going to be the sage, the cloves, the things like holy basil or tulsi, same thing. The peppermint or whatever type of mint that you'd like, the rosemary, all of those that have the really strong smell that you can smell in your kitchen, those are volatile oils. Those are oils that are inside those herbs. Usually those herbs are going to be the pain relieving ones. Okay, so that's kind of like a cheat sheet you can kind of keep in your head. So that's arnica, sage, cloves, which for me, cloves usually works almost instantaneously, as well as the arnica, peppermint, and rosemary. You can also do wild lettuce. And that one's not as common for people to use because people usually consider it a weed, so they kind of just chop it down. But wild lettuce is in there as well. Okay, those are the 3 different herbal classes and all of the examples of the herbs inside of those classes. So, like I said earlier, my main, and I'm glad you're here because you're going to go home with some too. I'm making this oil for bone repair and the kind of like damaged tissue, because you have messed up ankle, I got a messed up ankle, he got a messed up knee. I don't know if you got any messed up, but you be in the gym, so you know what I mean. So this is what this one is going to be about. Today we're going to be using horsetail and comfrey. These are our main herbs that we're going to be using. Now, I did kind of do a little bit of a no-no, but that's just because this is what's available for me. Whenever we're using herbs, it is extremely important when you are making a salve to avoid at all costs fresh herbs. Okay, because of the water content in there. Like we said, water, oil does not mix. So do not go out into your garden, get something and put it into the oil because of the high amount of water content. You always want to use dry herbs when making an infused oil. Whether it be an infused cooking oil, an infused hair oil, salve, whenever you're using oils, avoid water at all costs. Okay, so the reason why I said I did a little bit of a no-no is because we also want to avoid, I guess it's kind of personal preference, but you kind of want to avoid powdered herbs as well. Just because you can't really strain them. Okay, they'll be left over in the oil, and if you're using it for product, a lot of people don't like residue. A lot of people don't like the graininess that comes from the powder. Okay, so when you do use something like powder, which sorry guys, I'm gonna send you home with one. When you do use something like powder, be mindful you will have graininess in the sap. It's not gonna be this nice smooth butter that's gonna be put on your skin. There might be some graininess. Now we're gonna be using, it's not like it's salt, it's not like it's a really tough granule like of an herb. It's not really a tough substance, so it's not gonna like irritate your skin. But when you look down, you're gonna have like little powder. You're gonna have like little powder on your skin. You know, so if it's for personal use and it's all you got, by all means, you know, do what you do. But just keep in mind, if you ever want to gift it to somebody and you want to have a really nice presentation, or if you want to sell it in the future, you know, you want to really avoid powders, just because of that. Now, you want to avoid whole herbs as well. So for example, if it is like a bark, I'll give you guys a perfect example, actually. I got you, yeah. And this is where the experimentation has to come in as an herbalist. Okay, you have to experiment with it, fail a couple times, maybe have less potent of a product, too potent of a product, and kind of, you know, find your happy medium. If I were to take something like this, if you guys can see it, this is coco meca. This is an extremely thick, heavy bark. And it's actually really, the pieces are huge. Okay, this will take days in order to be extracted into this. Days, because of how thick it is and how big it is. So the bigger the herb that you're using, the more time you need to extract it. So that's why you kind of want to find a happy medium, because in reality, if we're doing a tea, if we're doing a tincture, or if we want like the most potent of the most potent, we want to use powders. But because of the extraction, well, because of, like I said, you don't want really powders on you, you kind of want to use a cut and sifted herb. So that means if this was kind of put into like a blender and just kind of quickly, you know, chopped up, it's going to have smaller pieces. It's going to be easier to extract. Okay. So the smaller the herb is, the more you're able to extract from it. So in reality, and like I said, teas and tinctures and stuff like that, powders are the most potent things that you can use, because the smaller the surface level, the more it's able to be extracted, the easier it is to be extracted. The larger the surface level, if I were to go and chop off a piece of a fucking branch and it's this big and just throw it into the oil, it's not really gonna do shit. Okay, so you have to find your happy medium. So be careful with thicker barks and thicker herbs and bigger herbs. Try to cut it down, try to sift it down somehow to where you have a smaller surface level, okay? Smaller surface level, more extraction. Larger surface level, less extraction. The more time needed to extract, okay? So yeah, I'm gonna be using horsetail. I have it in the powder. Comfrey, I have it in the powder. We're gonna be using rosemary, which is not in the powder, which is great. And last but not least, we're gonna be using cloves, okay, which is not in the powder. This is gonna be the whole clove, okay? Now, when it comes to the measurements, again, some herbalists might not like it, but you don't have to be extremely, you know, when you are making a product and you're selling it, yeah, sure, you wanna have measurements. Exact measurements, because you want everything to be predictable. You don't want to be wasting your product. You don't want to be having fuck ups, because that's just going to mess up your whole business. It's going to mess up the cash flow. But if you are at home, if you are using it for yourself, if you are using it for friends and family, the measurements don't really matter, to be very honest with you. But just keep in mind, when it comes to the oils, it only has so much space. So try to keep it 1 cup of oil, 1 cup of herbs per 1 cup of oil. That's going to be your happy medium. Anything more than that, it's going to be kind of wasting herbs. You're not really going to get all of those herbs extracted. Let's see. Let's start off with the powders. Any questions that you guys might have? I know you all in a little late. You good?
Have it, what earlier.
What was it? What was it?
Nah, the topic already went away, so.
No, go ahead,
I
go
was
ahead.
say something about the potty, but
Yeah,
for the gut cleansing,
Uh-huh.
that was kind of used with like a powder too.
So the powder that's in there, so, okay, good question. All right, I'll answer that.
I
while
do
I
be
pull.
saying like the little, stuff at the bottom when I do drink it, look.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the slippery elm. So there are certain herbs that you want to use in powders, in my opinion. And that's usually the mucilage herbs. Okay, and that's because they turn into that mucilage a lot faster. Perfect example is the slippery elm. It's actually slippery elm bark. So it's the bark of the tree. Now imagine I go to the tree and I cut off the bark and I just put it in water. How much of the mucilage am I actually going to be able to extract from them? Not very much, right? So there's herbs that you want to use in the powder form. That's usually going to be your mucilage herbs. The slippery elm, as soon as you put it into water, if it's in a powder form, as soon as you put it into water, it starts turning into gel, right? So there's different herbs that you want to use for powders. It depends on which ones. So in our gut cleanser, the reason why we put it in the powder form is because we want people to drink that mucilage, right, when they make that tea.
That'd be the worst part, right?
Yeah, it's the worst part. It's at the bottom. It's all gooey and fat, but that's gonna be coating your intestines. So if you have inflammation on your intestines, you have IBS, you have acid reflux, that's gonna be going, it's almost like a jelly. It's going down your intestines and coating your walls, right? So that's where powder herb will come in. Another example for a good usage of powder herbs, in my opinion, is tinctures. Okay, because tinctures, the more, like I said, the less surface level or the more surface level you have, the less is extracted. So when you're able to bring it down to a powder, that alcohol is able to extract everything out and becomes extremely potent. Okay. Not really. It kind of goes to the bottom. Yeah, it kind of goes to the bottom, but it's safe to ingest. Yeah, and it's a little different than ingesting it than putting it on your skin and you're seeing powdered little flakes and speckles on your skin, right? So that's why it's like, yeah, herbal medicine it's how can I say it? It's really trial and error, okay? Some people might not mind the powder in the oil. Some people do. Some people might mind the powder in the tincture. Some people don't. So learn what you like, make it for what you like, and then learn kind of like what other people like around you. If you're recommending it to friends and to, so keep a kind of like a database in your head or on a piece of paper or file of the people you come in contact, what is their preferences when it comes to the different herbs? Do people not mind the powder? Do people love the potency of it, don't mind the powder? Then you can keep that in mind, when you're making herbal medicine for them. And it's kind of like based off of what you got too. If I only have powder and I don't have anything else, I'm not just gonna say, well, fuck it, I don't have it. I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna use it. At the end of the day, it's about the medicine. At the end of the day, it's about the medicine and ingesting the medicine. So regardless if you like the smell or not, if you like the taste or not, is it healing? Is it medicinal? Take the shit. That's kind of like how my brain works. And that's why when people complain about the gut cleanser being so bitter, it's like, this is not your, summer iced tea that you can just chill and sip on. This is so you can heal yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Bless you.
Someone is saying, is that why they shift the tinctures before you?
Yeah, because if not, everything's just gonna sit at the bottom. Which is not really a problem, but if you do shake it, you're gonna be able to ingest the herbs. So
when you say like, is it like important to know when to use powder and
Yeah.
dry herb?
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, for the oils, I don't know if you were here, but for the oils, you want to avoid fresh herbs.
Yeah, say dry herb, right?
Yeah, only dried herbs. For tinctures, you can use fresh herbs. Right? It just all depends on your alcohol content, which again, that's for a whole nother workshop. For teas, you can go outside and grab it out your garden and make a tea. Right. So yeah, it is important to know when to use dried, when to use fresh, when to use powdered, when to use like the whole herb. And it's important, and this is kind of like just for educational purpose for you guys, it's important to know which part of the plant that you're using, the leaf, the bark, and the roots, right? Because they all have different potency. So like today, we're gonna be using comfrey leaf, but in reality, the comfrey root is a lot more potent. Okay, so just because you are using that herb doesn't mean it's actually the most potent form of that herb, the most potent part of that herb. Yeah, that's for a whole nother class.
Then the South, you put it in shirt and out.
I tried that. It was awful. Because the alcohol and the oil separated and they just don't mix.
Yep.
Right, so in my head, I was like, well, if you have the alcohol and then maybe the beeswax might harden up the alcohol. I was like, okay, that's cool, yeah, let me try it. But it just does not mix. Exactly. Right, so you can't really solidify it like that. And so what I found out was the salve was at the bottom and then the alcohol was just on top and I had to just pour out the alcohol and the salve was still there. So I tried that and I'm thinking I'm trying to get creative with it. But yeah, it did not work at all. That was funny. So for the measurements of this one, okay, so also, I'm glad you guys brought this up for the powders and stuff. When you have powder, you need a lot less, right? So 1 pound of powder is not equivalent to 1 pound of leaves. You know what I mean? 1 pound, and a perfect example is if you look, you can find our mullein leaf. And the mullein leaf bag, when it comes in a pound, it's literally like this fucking big. It's humongous, right? But if you look at our cocomeca, this is a pound, right? So be mindful on the weight of the herb and be mindful on powders and, well, yeah, the weight. So the powders are a lot less, they weigh a lot less, but because they are broken down more finely, they are more potent, okay? The larger it is, I don't want to say the less potent, but for lack of better words, really, the larger it is, the less medicine you're really going to be able to take out of it. Okay, the smaller it is, the more medicine you're going to be able to take out of it. So you'll be able to extract a lot more medicine from this powder than from a thicker bark. Okay, so be very mindful of that. And be mindful of, like I said, the powders are not equal to the whole counterpart. The powders, because they're broken down more finely, I'm going to keep saying this, they are a lot more potent, so you need a lot more less. You need a lot less. Okay, the bigger it is, the more you need. The smaller it is, the less you need. Right? All right. And so I'm using, okay, so I'm using for 1 cup of herb to my 1 cup of oil, I'm going to be using about 3/4 of it is going to be horsetail and comfrey. Okay, the extra little bit is going to be the assisting herbs. Because my main focus is not pain relief. My main focus is rebuilding the tissue, rebuilding the muscle, or rebuilding the bones, right? So I put my horsetail in there. Now I'm going to put the comfrey in there. Is there any questions on those two?
One said, can you make tea out of the analgesics for?
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
The analgesic herbs. So all of those herbs that besides the arnica, all of those other herbs you can use internally. Okay. Again, we're making the salves because salves are very convenient. You can apply it topically. You can bring it wherever you want, and you can apply it multiple times a day without having to make a new tea, and they last a lot longer. Okay, but any of these, the analgesic, the same properties, the same classes, the analgesic, the astringent, the stem cell proliferation, they're going to have the same exact effect or action inside the body as they do outside the body. Okay, so yes, if you have pain inside the body, you can drink it and relieve that pain inside of the body. Now, it might take a little longer. You might need more of it, because what I like about salves as well is that wherever you apply them, that is where the medicine is going. You know what I mean? When you are drinking it internally, you don't know where the fuck the medicine is going. It's going everywhere. And the body has to be work with the herbs to now pinpoint that pain, right? Now, if I have a broken thumb, I can apply it. I'm not gonna drink it. Hopefully that my liver processes it, and then eventually it gets to this thumb. It might take you 2-3 cups a day, maybe like 2-3-4 days in a row, right? Eventually, so your body can work with the herb to put that action on there. The beauty of salves is that it's very localized. The medicine is localized. So if I have an ouch on my thumb, as I would explain it to my child, I put the salve right there where the ouch is. Okay, and so it works a lot more quicker. It works a lot faster. On when you want to localize, when you want to find, when you want relief in a specific area of your body. Okay. Especially when it comes to the skin, the muscles, and the bones.
Someone asked, how can you tell if your salve or your infused oil has mold?
Has mold?
Yeah,
You can smell the smell. It goes rancid really fast. Or it's easy to tell when oil goes rancid. It's the smell. The smell. A little more clearly. Actually, I'll put a little more comfy for you guys. Because you guys are gonna be taking this home. I'll put a little bit more comfy.
Is the base, is that just water in there, or did you mix it with someone?
So in the pot itself is water, but in the cup is oil. So you weren't here for that, but it's called a double boiler technique. Double boiler. So because the oils are a lot more volatile, they're a lot more gentle, a lot more sensitive to heat. You don't really want to apply heat directly to the oil, meaning you don't want to just put the oil in the pot and then turn the fire on and have a fire boiling the oil. Because the more that it's exposed to those high temperatures, the less you're going to be able to have it. Okay. I did forget the fastest way to make a salve or an infused oil. Now, we said that just leaving it infused like this, 4 to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, right? It's the longest one. This, the sun oil, 4 to 6 weeks, leave it out in the sun. This, 2 hours to a couple of days if you want it. But the fastest of the fastest is gonna be just apply it straight to the heat. It's gonna be apply to put the oil straight on the heat. So oil in the pot and start simmering the oil. That's gonna be the fastest of the fastest. And that works in case if you want to do it quicker. That works in case of an emergency. So for me and my personal experience, I did that for my first salve for my ankle. Because I'm coming home from my game, I'm in hella pain. I'm not waiting 2-3 hours for this shit. You know, I need it now. And so I was able to just put oil into the pot, do the same thing, right? Same measurements, and have that oil simmer. Just as if you were cooking something, right? And now I'm not gonna have that oil as long as this salve because it's gonna go rancid quicker. The properties are just gonna die off quicker. It's gonna bring a lot more oxidation to the oil. It's just not gonna be as potent. However, in cases of emergencies, it was done in like 20-30 minutes. Right? So, you know, in my case, I needed it as an emergency and it provided quick relief, almost instant relief. So I forgot about that part. That's the fastest way to make the oil, but it's not gonna last as long. You know?
How long did you say that would last?
About a week. Yeah, about a week. This is gonna last months. Months, if not years, depending on how you store it properly, because of the beeswax. Yeah, because of the beeswax, and it's not exposed to high temperatures. Okay, but when it is exposed to high temperatures, there's more oxidation. Okay, so there's more, it's just becoming more rancid as it goes on. Let's see. So I got about 3/4, and it doesn't have to be super, you know, to the exact measurements. Okay, and now I'm gonna put in my rosemary. my rosemary, and my cloves. Another analgesic one is cayenne pepper, by the way. Almost forgot about the cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper, that's what I like to use in my, can I get some scissors, please? Thought I had them. Yeah, the cayenne pepper is gonna bring blood flow to the area. It's gonna move circulation in that area really well. So it's gonna reduce swelling. The cayenne pepper also is going to stop bleeding because it does have astringency to it. So it's gonna stop bleeding. It's gonna close up wounds. Okay, that's cayenne pepper. I forgot to mention that. And that is almost like there's multiple actions in the cayenne pepper. One of them is, again, the astringency. And then another one is the analgesic property it has. Now, you guys probably can't see it. If you guys want to walk up and check it out, you can. But right now, you can actually see the oil start to bubble a little bit. Definitely not like a simmer, but you start to see a little. You guys can come around, come check it out if you want. You can start to see the little bubbles start forming in the oil. And that's because it's simmering, but at a very, very, very low temperature. I am gonna add more water into that too. You wanna use maybe like half the way. So that it's heating up almost all of the oil. You don't have to put it all the way to the top, but yeah, I gotta add more water.
Like all the bubbles that's coming out right there, that's kind of.
So that's the oil kind of like simmering. And yeah, it's a very, very gentle simmer as compared to look at the boiled water.
Yeah.
Very aggressive.
Low about water too.
Yeah, because that shit is just very aggressive and it's just, you know what I mean? This is a very, it's a less aggressive form of boiling, I guess, or simmering. That's the beauty of the double boiler technique.
Someone is asking, can you go back to how much is used of each herb that you're using?
So my measurements, I like 1 cup of herb to 1 cup of oil. Okay, what each measurement for each herb is gonna depend on what intention you have for it. Okay, in this example, a majority of that 1 cup of herbs were horsetail and comfrey, because I want my main intention to be the muscle rebuilding and the bone rebuilding. Okay, for you, if your whole thing is like nerve pain or muscle pain, you want a majority of the other herbs, the cloves and the rosemary. Okay, so it all depends on your intention, but I like 1 cup of herb, 1 cup of oil. Okay, and yeah, let me turn this a little bit up. What's the time?
It is 3:11.
Okay, so by 4 o'clock, I'll turn this off. By 4, maybe like 4:30. If I wanted it to be more potent, like I said, I can leave it on till fucking 8 o'clock at night and just keep pouring on water that, you know, when it evaporates. If you want, I can leave it till tomorrow, the next day, but for the sake of this video, I'm gonna turn it off at about 4. Okay, but that's gonna be infusing, and you can tell how much it's infusing. Not necessarily the thicker it gets, but the color, the darker it gets. You'll see the properties start to become extracted into the oil, the darker that it gets. Okay, and smell. Yeah, and the smell. And the smell. Now, in this form right here, without the beeswax, this can be used internally. I really wouldn't, you know, because of the herbs that I put in there. There's no really reason for me, but it's safe to use internally. So a lot of people will do this for cooking oils. They like to make salads and they like to have these infused oils of rosemary and olive oil because it tastes good, right? So they can be herbal infused oils can be taken internally. They are safe to do so. However, once you start adding in the beeswax, you don't want to be using that internally. You don't need to be using, you don't need to be eating wax. Okay, guys? Now, let's see what else was on my thing. We covered the do's and don'ts. Storage wise, you don't need to put this into a fridge. Okay, if you want it to harden quick, this is what I actually do. If I just want to, sometimes I don't have the patience for it. If I just kind of want to use it right away. After you put the beeswax in there, as soon as it starts cooling, the beeswax is going to start hardening. So if you want to use it right away, after you pour it into your cup or jar or whatever it is, put it into the fridge and it'll harden up within a couple minutes. Okay, but if you just leave it onto the counter, oils take a long time to cool down when just left out at room temperature. So you might need to wait a good amount of time before it hardens up. So if you want it to harden up quicker, like let's say, for example, I was making an oil for a woman that I knew, but I had to leave the house in a couple hours. And so I made the oil real quick, put the beeswax in there, I put it in the fridge, and within like 5 minutes, I was able to take it and just leave. Okay, because it hardened up as compared to if I would have just left it on the counter, it would have still been running as I was leaving the door. Okay, so it hardens up when it is exposed to cooler temperatures. Now, the beauty of that is that when it's exposed to hot temperatures, it goes back into the liquid form. The beauty of that is if you put too much beeswax, you can always just melt it down, put more oil, and it'll soften up the sap. Because if you put too much beeswax, it's gonna be like a rock. It's gonna be hard to actually get the shit onto your finger. You know what I mean? It's like coconut oil. If you try to apply coconut oil to your skin, you open up the jar and that shit is just like frozen. It's just like, fuck, I just have to, right? So it's the same concept. If you ever want to, like I said, redo the oil, you messed it up or you want to add in something else, or let's say I forgot to throw in my cacao butter, or I want to throw in some jojoba or some type of gentle one that I didn't put in, I forgot. You can literally just melt it down, throw in that oil, mix it up, and then just pour it back into the medium, and it's gonna harden up again and have your salad.
Is that mess with the shop like at all?
It does not. It does not. So as long as you do not put water into it, avoid water like it is the plague. When it comes to your oils, drink your water, folks. What else? What else? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Let's see what I had on my thing. I will say this. The skin, somebody might correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the skin has anywhere from 8 to like 12 layers. I can't remember the number. I can't remember if it was 12, 10, 8 to about 12 layers of skin. Okay. So be very mindful on the thickness of the oil. Like I said earlier, the thicker it is, the less it's going to penetrate in the skin. Okay. The thinner it is, the more it's going to penetrate. So one of the few oils, really it's a butter or whatever you want to call it. One of the few oils that I know that penetrates all layers of the skin is going to be cacao butter and shea butter. Cacao butter and shea butter. Now, they are extremely light, okay, and they are extremely volatile. They're extremely sensitive. So I'm going to put in the cacao after everything is done, or the shea butter after everything is done, so that I can make this oil more penetrable. Okay, does that make sense? Right, so, but only after it's done. You can literally turn it off and it doesn't have to be boiling at all. As long as the oil is like hot, it's gonna melt something like this because it's so just gentle, right? And so there are things you can do to make the oil, the salve, be able to penetrate deeper, and that's by adding something in like a shea butter or a cacao butter. Okay, so that's a little tip and trick. It's also extremely hydrating. Okay, so you won't need to put it on as many times. Okay, as something like an olive oil or sesame oil, they kind of are, yeah, the olive oil or sesame oil or even jojoba oil, I found sometimes they're just kind of, they come and they leave. So you put it in on the morning time and by the afternoon time, your fucking elbows ashy again type thing, right? So when the deeper they penetrate, the longer it's gonna stay hydrated. So that's a little tip and trick. Add a shea or a cacao butter, and that's gonna allow it to penetrate a lot deeper and stay there. Okay, I did mention again the castor oil. I want to reiterate that the castor oil is very powerful when it comes to the lymphatic system and moving waste and moving the lymphatic system. And when we're talking about broken bones, broken tissues, broken anything in the body, we have to remove the damage that was done before it is able to heal. Okay, it's like a car crash. They gotta tow the car away, they gotta sweep the shit up, and then they're able to reopen the traffic. Right? It's the same concept in the body. So because the castor oil is very powerful for the lymphatic system, you can always throw it in whatever oil that you want to make. You can always throw it in after. Okay, it doesn't make it extremely thick. It doesn't make a really good medium like this. However, just like this, you can still put it in to use that effect, right? So for the castor oil, you can put it in after, when it's all said and done, before you, or after you put the beeswax or before, or whatever, when it's all said and done, put it in there and that's gonna give it that extra kind of like lymph moving effect that you might want. Yeah, to heal, like I said, broken anything, or if you want to move cysts or any abnormal growths, tumors like that, castor oil is going to be the best for that. Okay, this isn't going to be the best for it, like the olive oil, the sesame, but the castor oil is going to be the best for that. So just make sure you understand the difference between what oils to use for your medium to extract the herbal properties, and what oils you can put in after the fact to kind of add medicinal benefits to it. Okay. So for this one, ideally, I would put castor oil in there to help remove the initial trauma of the injuries that we're all facing. Okay. But because I don't have it, I'm not going to put it in, but I will put in the cacao after it's all done. Cool thing about cacao too, you can eat it. And it lubricates you not only externally, but it's also going to lubricate you internally. So for people that have some type of IBS, some type of acid reflux, some type of internal inflammation, cacao butter is really good to eat. Just a quick little FYI. I wanted to eat that. Let's see.
Someone said, will it help lymphomas?
Say that one more time.
Will it help lymphomas?
For what?
Lymphomas.
Lymphomas. Yeah. So the castor oil is going to help with the lymphomas. Yeah. And then if you want to, so it's not just the castor oil, but if you want to make an infused oil, go ahead and pick your medium, olive oil, sesame oil, whatever, and then put astringent herbs in there. Or you can put lymphatic herbs in there. Okay? To give it almost like an extra boost. So in this case, that's not what we're doing. But some lymphatic herbs like the chaparral, that's a lymphatic herb. Cleavers is a lymphatic herb. This is good for removing, like I said, the damage or any abnormal growths. You want to use lymphatic herbs. Okay, like I said, that's going to be the cleavers. That's going to be the burdock root. That's going to be the castor oil. That's going to be nettle leaf. All of those are different lymphatic herbs that you can apply or that you can extract into the oil and apply it onto that tumor or that cyst or that abnormal growth, so that you can consume the oil or consume the teas internally, like those herbs internally, but you can kind of hit it from both directions. Take it internally and you can put it externally. So if I have like a tumor on my arm, I'm gonna apply these infused oils externally and I'm take the teas internally. Okay, you hit it with a little double whammy. And then you guys can see right here what I mean about the powder. If you see the oil, you see how grainy it is, right? Some people don't like that shit. Me, I don't really care, especially since it was on my ankle. If I'm using a face oil, that's awful, you know, because then people are gonna say you have dirt on your face. So try to avoid the powders as much as you can when it comes to the infused oils. But like I said, it's all we have. I'm gonna make it anyways. It's still gonna be medicinal, but it's not gonna be the most aesthetically pleasing. And some people, you know, depending on what you're using it for, really want that nice aesthetic, nice smooth, nice clean look to it. For me, it's medicine. I don't go for it. It also might, I mean, you're not using like turmeric and anything, but you also might stain the skin a little, depending on what powder you use. So be mindful.
Can you put turmeric in salt?
For sure. Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. You just might stain a little bit. So pros and cons, pros and cons. It might look like a little orange, like a little carrot. It was all right.
It seems like this would be fine.
Yeah, it was all right with the sesame. I haven't put the cacao in there yet, but as I'm rubbing it, I'm feeling like the graininess. And I literally feel like I have sand on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just be very mindful of the powder. Yeah, be very mindful of the powder. Let's see, what else was I gonna address? That's kind of really all I wanted to address.
Someone was asking what herbs were used to regenerate the nerve.
To regenerate the nerves, that would be more so on the horsetail. The horsetail, because the nerves are, the reason why the nerves are able to have these electrical kind of signals run through them, the reason why they're able to maintain their electrical charge is because of the electrolytes. One of the electrolytes specifically is calcium. When we talked about horsetail has the highest amount of silica. Okay, silica is essentially kind of like calcium in the body. It's almost like identical twins that can be used by the body. Okay, so something like horsetail, okay, would be very great for that. But I would also want you to use, if you have nerve pain, use one of these analgesic herbs. So you can do either the peppermint, the rosemary, or the cloves. Okay, in conjunction with the horsetail and make that an infused oil, and that'll be good for any nerve pain and regenerate the nerves in that area. But that's also a huge internal problem as well. Okay, so we have to be internally, we have to be taking lots of electrolytes in order to rebuild the nerves. So it's not necessarily I'm gonna put it on my skin and it's gonna rebuild it. It's gonna help with it. It's gonna help with the pain, but nerve damage and nerve repair is an internal problem. Okay. That's why I said in the beginning, I had to bring up the internal factor because this is not going to get to the root of the problem. Okay. The root of the problem is your organ problem. Okay. Whatever organs or glands are damaged in your body, that's going to be the root. This is just going to be a remedy, a quick remedy, because we don't want to be walking around in pain and stuff like that. But yeah, this is just the remedy. This is not gonna fix like the nerve damage completely, but it will help. It will help.
But check that though, 'cause I'm honestly trying to like start really understanding more of like the art of healing. And I'm starting to understand like how much you need to know about like certain things, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
It ain't easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be easy the more, the more.
It's simple, but it's not really easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's simple if you understand, and this is why I obsessed over like the organs and like, that's why I have all these medical posters, because I want to figure out exactly what the organs do. Because when you figure out exactly what each organ does, then it really is like, how did my mentor break it down to me? It's like a city. In a city, you have your waste management, you have your police, you have your government that kind of rules all. You have your electrical grid. You have all these different aspects of it. And each of those represents the organ. Right? So the waste management is the intestines. What happens if we just leave all the trash on the streets? Right? We're gonna get sick and die. We're gonna get poisoned, we're gonna get whatever, right? It's just not gonna be a fun thing. It's the same thing in the body. What happens if our electrical grid is having issues? Everybody's gonna have issues with their electricity. Buildings aren't gonna power on, machines aren't gonna power on, right? The governments, that's gonna be like the hormonal system, the endocrine system. That tells, hey, produce more of this, hey, produce less of this, hey, go this speed, right? So when you simplify every organ in the body and every system, like I said, it becomes very simple. Because then it's just like, oh wait, you're having heart failure. Well, what keeps a heart going? Electricity. Oh shit, okay, so you probably have a neurological problem. Well, what organs are responsible for the neurological system? Oh, the adrenal glands. Oh, right. So then you can just like zoom in to like, oh, these sets of organs are why you have this symptom on the outside. Right. That's how I break down the art of healing. Very simple. At every root of every problem is going to be an organ problem. You can say it's my diabetes, you can say it's this, you can say it's the trauma, you can say it's this. Okay. But at the end of the day, if this organ is working optimally, you shouldn't have any problems. Right? And so a lot of people focus on the external, like, ouch, this hurt, this looks like that looks like that. Okay, but why? Let's look deep within, because there's only about a dozen organs that we work with. So it's not that hard. And they're all literally like almost right here. You ain't got no organs in your legs. You don't got no organs in your arms. Right? So it really is kind of just like right here. What's fucking up right here? Understand every single function for every single one and how they correlate with each other, and you can figure out how to heal anything. And the right time, because some people will come to me. I used to be naive and say, you can heal everything. And that's partially true. Because then people will come to you and they had cancer for 3 years, then 2 years of radiation, and they still drink Coca-Cola on the weekends, and then they have 2 weeks left to live, and they go to you and say, hey, can you fix this? I don't think so. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really sure about that. Can I? Sure. If I had those 3 years back. Now, after all that damage, might be a little too late. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, our cells and our organs, they give up too. They can't just work their whole lives. Like eventually they're like, fuck, bro, I'm tired. I just want to give up now. And that's what happens to a lot of people, is they wait so long. I had diabetes for 30 years. Like, fuck, you couldn't come to me 30 years ago, bro? Or you couldn't and I understand everybody's on their own journey. And this is kind of like what you learn when you become like this healer, is like everybody's on their own journey and everybody has their own traumas. Everybody has different situations and stuff like that. But I used to be naive and say, I don't care what it is. I can heal anything. I don't care. I know exactly what to do. But then it's like, wait, they're not even eating the way you recommended them to eat because their family's pressuring them. Oh, wait, they're not doing this because their religion is telling them this. Oh, they're not doing this because oh shit, so it's not that easy. It's simple when you lay it down on a piece of paper, but that shit's not easy. So you'll learn that. You'll learn that the more you start to heal your own body and the more you start to help other people heal. Like, everybody's situations are different. Things can be simple, but shit is just not easy. It's as easy as they make it. And if they've spent years of suffering, usually they are okay with spending more years of suffering. That's the sad truth. It's a lot easier for them to suffer for 3 more years because they suffered for the past 10 than it is to change their entire being, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, in the next 1 or 2 years. Yeah, it's a lot of momentum going the other way. And that's why most people have to hit like a rock bottom. Right? And then, but the only thing is, not everybody recovers from that rock bottom. Yeah, that's the sad truth of it. For me, I had to hit that rock bottom. I'm thankful that I had another chance to, but it literally took me passing out in the ER, getting thrown on a hospital bed and having surgery that I didn't really agree to. It was just that they had to do what they had to do for me to kind of have my eyes open and be like, wow, okay, I actually don't want to do that shit. I actually don't want to eat like that. I don't want to do that. So, yeah, you'll learn that on the journey. It's tough to stomach, especially if you're working with them, because you want to just change them. Like, bro, I already told you what to do. It's like this, do this, please. But if they don't want to change themselves, and you can't move on from the fact like everybody is their own person, and like that's their choice, and you can't separate yourself from that, it's literally going to eat you alive. And that's what it used to do for me, especially when it comes to family and friends and people you see on a daily basis. It's like, please, like, don't do this. And it like eats you alive. And yeah, that's what you learn on the journey. But back to the salves. I'm just kidding. Is there any other questions about salve making? Super duper simple. Find your medium of the oil. Okay. Find what intention you want to use or intention you want when it comes to your herbs. Depending on how much time you want to spend on it, there's multiple methods in infusing the herbs into the oils. You have the 4 to like, it really is like 6 to 8 week with just leaving it on your counter. The 4 to 6 week, leaving it in the sun. The 1 to 2 hours or days if you'd like, doing the double boiler. Or if you need it rapid, rapido, just put it onto the pot and just have it simmer and do that. Okay. The shelf lives for each one, really, if you store it properly, meaning it's not in an extreme heat and it's not in an extreme cold, your oils are going to last you and it's not exposed to a lot of air. It can last you anywhere from like 3 months to a year or two. The extreme cold, I don't really know. Yeah. I'm not really sure. That's kind of always what I've been taught. I haven't really exposed anything to extreme cold. I have exposed it to extreme heat and then it got rancid. But it's just easier. It's just safe to keep it in a good medium. Okay. I don't really know what happens if you put oil in the freezer. I'm experimenting with that. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil in the freezer and see what it does. But it's safe to just keep it in your drawer, keep it in your cabinet, away from direct sunlight. And because the more the sunlight hits, the more oxidation comes. That's why whenever you get an oil, this was a cheapy DP oil that I got at the fucking Target real quick. But whenever you get oils, usually they say what? To get it in a dark colored glass. Okay. As longer it's exposed to the heat, okay, the longer, the faster, the more oxidation comes. So it's okay when you're infusing it and it's for a controlled amount of time, okay? But whenever it's just a long period of time, you're leaving it on your countertop, right? And it's getting exposed to heat every single day. It's just gonna shorten and shorten and shorten that shelf life. Okay, so if you want to extend your shelf life, put it in a dark colored bottle or in a tin, like the one that you have in your bag, and just put it into your cabinet. That has a normal room temperature anywhere from 65 to 75 degrees. Okay, that's just going to be in your cabinet. Right.
That's the same for cooking, right?
That's the same. It's the exact same for cooking oils. It's the exact same for cooking oils. What else? Also, be mindful that well, I guess here is one thing. Be mindful that just because it's a dry herb doesn't mean it's 100% dry. It's almost never going to be, unless it's a powder, it's almost never going to be 100% dry. There's always going to be a tiny little bit of moisture in there. Always, for any herb that you use. Okay. So, like we said, like we said, the oil and water doesn't mix. That's why this has a smaller shelf life than, let's say, just a pure cooking oil. Okay, so that's the difference. There's not enough water to where tomorrow it's gonna go rancid, but over time, as compared to just like a pure olive oil you got from the store and you leave it in your cabinet, you literally never touch it, you would probably have that shit for like 100 years, right? There's absolutely no water. But when you start putting in the oil, the herbs, unless it's like a powder, it is never 100%. Even if it's like 98% dry, there's still some type of water or moisture content in there. And that's what's going to lead to it going bad over time. Okay. So again, it's not as fast as if you were to use a fresh herb or if you were to just put water into it, but eventually it does have some type of shelf life. So I guess that could pose a risk when it comes to the freezer. Maybe it will expand the water content or some shit like that. I'm not really sure, but it is going to have an effect on that tiny amount of water content in it. Okay. Skin mice. The beeswax. You know what's crazy? I used to think doing this, I used to think that like glass exposed to heat, it just explodes. So I used to be so scared. I used to be so scared to do shit like this because I always thought like if you put it on the stove, it's just gonna explode. And, yeah. But I'm a lot braver now. Where is my boom? The beeswax. So like we said, quarter cup, and you can play around with the measurements depending on the type of consistency you like for the salve. Some people want that hardened salve, where all they need to do is just rub the top of it and they get a little oil on their fingers and that's enough for them. Me, I like to be able to like dig my finger in there and legit get some out. That's kind of like a preference for me. So, for that, where you can like dig your finger in there and get some out, it's still in a solidified state. So if I put my finger in there, it's just gonna stay on my finger. It's not like it's just oil. That's gonna be the quarter cup of beeswax to 1 cup of oil. If you want more hardened, just use more beeswax. That's wild. For one, for 1 cup of oil, that'd be wild. That's literally like, it's like a rock. It's literally like a rock. Yeah. So yeah, you don't have to do that. And also be mindful that you are putting something in there, so it is going to increase the amount that you have. Right. So if you only want a personal stash of like, let's say a cup of oil, and you're putting in a shit ton of beeswax, well, that beeswax is going to melt, which is going to increase your yield. So be mindful of that as well. Same thing with the cacao or whatever other oil, the castor oil. Just be mindful. You are adding more oil, so you're gonna have more of a yield. Okay, so if you don't know what else to do with that, you're just gonna have more than what you really want. But for a safe measurement, one quarter of a cup of beeswax to 1 cup of oil. Okay, you can throw it in after. Do not throw it in before when your herbs are still in there, please. Throw it in after your herbs are extracted. So what I would do, I'm not going to do it now, but what I would do is when this is all done, I would take this out, strain it into another cup, and it might be hot enough to where you can put the beeswax in and melt it. But what I would do is I would just put it right back on here and melt the beeswax. Or a really easy thing you can do is get your own cup for the beeswax, right? Put the beeswax in that little cup and then put it in there and melt it. Then you can infuse them however you want to infuse them, whether you pour this into that, doesn't really matter. But do not pour the beeswax while the herbs are in there, please. Okay. What happens is that it's gonna take away your beeswax. It's gonna be stuck on the herb.
You ever want that?
No, because you're just throwing away the herbs. Right? And then you're gonna have to put more beeswax into it, and then you're gonna have to try to figure out, wait, how much ratio is actually in that oil as compared to what was left on the herbs. You know what I mean? So infuse it, infuse it. When you're all done, I'm gonna use this strainer to pour it into, where's my other, could you grab my other measuring cup? When this is done, I'm gonna pick it up, pour it into my other measuring cup. And then I'll probably put that measuring cup in there just to melt this. And when that's all melted and done, you can just take it out. You don't need you don't need another process where you're extracting or anything like that. You literally just need this to melt down so that I can mix with the entire oil. Okay, what time is it?
It's 3:43.
Damn. I don't know. Okay, any more questions on any of that?
One last one, but doesn't do with what you're doing.
Do not be asking me about some random shit.
Because a lot of them are asking if you're doing a class.
Are they asking if I'm doing a class? Yes, you did not know. No, this is how I spend my fucking Wednesdays. Yes, I'm doing. Yes, I'm doing a class, guys. Yes, I'm doing a class. Okay. So I'll probably end it just because, I mean, this can literally keep going. And because this is electric, this is probably gonna keep boiling for fucking ever. It's not gonna stop. So just to show you guys the process. Just to show you guys the process. Can I get the microfiber towel? So I can pick this up and pour. Just to show you guys the process, I'm gonna pour it into there. I am brave for this. Please use gloves at home. I'm actually a little wild for this, but for the class.
Powder herbal on the bottom.
Mhm. And I'm gonna go clean this real quick so that I can use this for the beeswax. And then I'm just gonna pour the beeswax into there. So I will be right back.
Exactly, powder herbs at the bottom.
Yeah, all these right here are the
Like a
powder.
glue, like a glue or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, all these are the powder right at the bottom.
that's what the slippery elbow looks like to be.
Yeah. Hating that part, I'm taking the gut cleanser. I know it's the best part, but it's like, ugh.
So after we turn off the stuff, you guys can choose your own herbs. You too, you guys can choose and get an herb to let me know what your issue is and we can kind of like go through the herbs and what would be best for you so that you can bag some up, take it home and you can make it one side. Okay? Alrighty.
Still gonna be FaceTime like that. What do you do?
Okay. So we got this out of the way. Would you be able to take this to some on your please? I'm gonna put this back in here. Just to melt the beeswax. Gracias. And actually the cacao butter. This does not need much heat at all.
That ain't gonna mess with you.
Instantly, yeah. That doesn't need that much heat. Try it. Tastes hella good. You just need a little bit. You wanna try it?
Like clear butter or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Exactly.
good.
It's cacao butter. So it's gonna taste like cacao, like, you know, it's gonna taste, literally gonna taste like chocolate.
Clear butter, you know what?
Yeah?
Yeah.
The cacao butter? That's so funny.
It's so good.
It is hella good.
Yeah.
I made this, I made this in the DR when I went to the DR.
What?
Yeah,
You made it?
yeah, I made it, yeah.
That's great. You gotta give me a class on that. That's hard.
I can remember right now.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the video.
Yes, you're missing out. Somebody said they wish they were here.
Yeah, you're missing out, man. Come on now.
Posted it for a week, 2 weeks.
What's up?
We posted it for a week or two,
I'll post it for like,
a month.
oh, no, maybe like 2 weeks. Maybe like 2 weeks. Maybe like 3 weeks.
Oh, she's in Arizona.
Yeah, we missing it for sure.
I was playing.
How's the heat?
Like, I was playing something.
Yeah. Oh, we got Tennessee in the house.
Tennessee, where y'all from? Drop it down in the comments. Where are you guys watching from? Let me know, let me know. So right now I just put the, let me go watch this too. Right now I just put the beeswax and the cacao into this. I turned off the heat because it really does not need a lot of heat in order to melt it. So I'm gonna let that kind of boil down real quick or like melt down.
Pennsylvania, Cincinnati, Washington,
Oh,
Texas.
oh, shit. Nobody from Cali? That's crazy.
On the clock and watching.
Get fired because of me? Man, keep right,
Barely.
keep right.
And Tony.
North Carolina in the house.
North Carolina?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Wisconsin.
Salves are gentle enough to be used by babies, pregnant women, old people, little babies, infants. I put a salve on my infant when he was like a week old. You know what I mean? So salves are very, very, very gentle. That's why I like them a lot.
Arizona says shout out to Life and Fun and everybody who attended this.
Oh. Much love. I'm just waiting for the beeswax to melt down. Again, I'm just gonna pour the beeswax into this, maybe stir it up a little bit, and then from there you pour it straight into your container. And then as it hardens up or as it cools down, it's gonna harden up and boom, you have your stuff. Yeah, and you can use it right now. You can literally just, as a massage oil. Literally just put it in right now. Now, when it comes to the smell of it, obviously it's not gonna smell that great. So what you can do is just put essential oils in there when it comes to the smells. But with the essential oils, you can use whatever essential oil you want to smell pretty, but put them in after the heat. Because essential oils are so volatile, they're extremely sensitive. If I said these are sensitive, those are even more sensitive. That you don't want to apply those to heat. Okay.
That stage when it's already off.
Yeah, when it's already off, you can put it in. Before it hardens up, obviously, because then you can't really mix it. But when you take it off, then you can start putting in your essential oils and, you know, get your smell goods. Your yeah. Beautiful. But yeah, if you want to smell good and stuff, because right now it smells very medicinal, earthy, herby. You know, not everybody likes that. Especially if you're gonna be putting it on your body, because some people, if you want to make it like a body lotion, body oil, whatever, you know, and still have these kind of like medicinal effects with the herbs. Some people want to put it on, but don't like the smell. Just put essential oils in there. Put whatever essential oils you want. Just make sure that you put it on after, you know, not while it's in the boiling process. Okay, and same thing as you're making like the sun tea or something like that. Just put it on after you've strained it off. So after the whole process. So you don't want to like put the essential oils into the thing and then put it out into the sun every day. Yeah, you want to put it on after the fact. Okay, it's kind of like the little cherry on top.